in the Holy Scripture, there's a man named Jacob, patriarch, and it says he dug a well. We're going to be looking at John chapter 4. Hezekiah built a cistern. He built some wells, water connected, a possible connection between men of God providing water with the contrived plot of teaching the God of love will provide a future home where his body of believers will be provided to eternal drinking water that maintains, sustains human bodies after a metamorphic type spiritual restructuring of our physical bodies, allowing us to survive and thrive in the presence of that light of his glory. That is, we need to be changed. Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else. What I'm going to be doing is continuing my lifelong adult pursuit of ways to prove that everything Jesus Christ said in Scripture is true. It is to be believed, acted upon, and even before the mysterious revelations of how I came to the rocks are the body parts of the Titans. I called them Nephilim until 2021. Found out that's not what a Nephilim is. They were Titans, really gods. So, I keep going on. For 40 years, I was a post millennial Presbyterian because I wanted to rightly divide the truth. I raised a family, took them to those churches for decades. It was from Scripture the right thing to do. We need to do the right thing. I don't know if it's the right thing or not, but I have to show a disclaimer. I need to get the screen set up for sharing. There it goes. That didn't take that long. This thing doesn't take long to show. There it is. It is a habit, and it seems to be something I'm going to stick with. I screenshot some pictures. I remember I left off with it was Peter Cooper. He supposedly invented a building with an elevator because he just figured pretty soon the way things were going, they he would they would invent an elevator, a safety elevator. They had elevators, but not for humans. They weren't safe. I the U for founder, U for union, V for advancement. Advancement? There it is. There's that elevator. Look at that. Look at this old building. I just had to take a clip of that one. I don't even know. Is that from that guy in England, Martin Zero? Somebody lived there, but it's all gone now. Oh, I showed that one. 6.3 years. Am I going the right way? These are kind of new. I know I do have new ones too. You look at these videos from this year around September 11th when Charlie Kirk died. One of my biggest videos in a while. And in it, I told him, I said already, as I am wont to do, the truth that this is a setup. This is part of that MK Ultra Operation Gladio mafia, but it's the Illuminati, bred the Rosicrucians, the Jesuits, the Freemasons, and the John Birch Society to have a very wide road of nothing we're able to do will ever convince the wide road. But the narrow road will be happy that some people, this is September 12th. I said it's all a fake. They're going to stretch it out. I, by name, called out the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, that it was going to be a prop up and try to be, the Noahide laws were going to enter into it, all based on, the Epstein, situation. So I've been going 5 minutes before it showed the first person actually logged on. Whoever you are, welcome. Uh, I noticed, and the Lord showed to me myself. I was vision questing, and I was shown. I'll get 100 views, 150 views, but I've been doing it for 10 years, and I'm not doing it for views. And it was God's way of reinforcing that during this recent vision quest of I'm clicking on people with 83,000 subscribers was the one guy, and he's getting, his video was out for 3 days and he's getting 300 views. I think the computer AI is driving people away from YouTube, but the Lord Christ Jesus, the Messiah, the Creator, our God, has so comforted my spirit as He does, just setting my intent, that it doesn't matter. It didn't matter that when I started what this channel used to be called Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past in 2016, I didn't have any subscribers. I was doing it because God said, this YouTube is a joke. It's owned by people who are evil, but it's what I am going to use, the platform I'm going to use. I tried to look at BitChute and a couple others. It didn't work. But here's what I got today. It's about the water, Jacob's well. I normally start with, the pictures like I'm in the process of, and then I'll move. I'm going to do the rare reversal of order. So that means I'm going to look at the tabs in reverse. I know that's not a big deal to you. So where's the new stuff? There's the gun from that video. So we left off here. So what? I used to get thousands of views. This is fine because I'm doing the Lord's will and I'm doing what I've always done, trying to rightly divide the truth and doing it. Look at this guy. Oh, I have a sad video. This is kind of a sad video, but this is an outline of one of the canals and the river and the water. This really exists, and it was really used as a type of crane to reach down into the boat, spin it, and unload. Like their version of the Erie Canal. We all found these things. There's so many of these in England. But after the reset, I'll show you a picture of this. They used children because the existing tunnels of somehow 1723, they needed orphan. They didn't have trains then, but they had orphans, and Satan was loosed. This is a child with stepped into a harness pulling coal, and that was his life. They'd start when they were 4 years old. Look at that. These people. An important influence on Charles Darwin during 1802. I'm pleased with where the Lord has taken my theology. I Nobody's going to talk to me about a secret turquoise mine in my backyard, and I'm not going to at least look at it and go like, "Wow, that is really a wall of turquoise," and it means something. It was expressed elements during the flood. It could be, all of those adrenaline type things in your body, but you don't get caught up in the shock and the horror of the 1800s of how evil they were, and oh, they built these buildings to re-educate all the Native American indigenous. Don't we believe that all these buildings were here for a long, long time before they showed up in the United States or what used to be Egypt? I'm still processing this information, but I'm trying to do it at the same time. An echo from another age. I like to watch these guys hike sometime. And if this was in Egypt, they'd be saying, well, this proves the smooth drill bit cores that they could make round holes, except this is in the middle of the desert in Utah or northern New Mexico. And it's even more weird, but you can see they'd be saying, how did they carve it with primitive tools? This is some sort of a body part. I try to get another picture of it, but he walked by another body part. These hoodoos, that's what they call them, hoodoos, not like the old "Who Do You Love," that song. But this is, in my world, this is a windpipe cover on top of a esophagus. They're preserved a lot, where a lot of the heads of the old titans would be sticking up. These aren't the mountain titans. But during the 40 days, 140 days of the flood, as they circled the 4 to 6 drains of the flat earth, as they would have gathered parts together. When you mix things together, aggregates combine that are similar, down to the point of where the Illinois prairie, with its 40 to 60 inches of topsoil, is as much a part of the Grand Canyons being carved up and risen up, and some mountains made low and some made high. That looks different, doesn't it? I got a good explanation for that. I don't know whether to describe it or light this cigarette. There's 3 different types right there. I'm seeing brick, maybe another type of brick. It is, I'm kidding. But the guy says that, well, when they were rebuilding these tunnels, since it was already open, since it's probably a vein and artery of one of the, Elohim titans that died like men because they weren't compassionate to the weak and the poor. These guys go running around. That's not Martin Zero. He's one of the wobbly runner crew. That's 3 different types of bricks and one keep the water. Yeah, they don't know what these tunnels are for. This guy here, Sons of God in Genesis 6, he's coming along like going like, don't believe that nonsense. But he's still pushing the Septuagint. 70 scholars of Jewish type situations, because it's BC. Then they got it completed in 95 AD. Well, that's a Josephus type thing. Like, oh, wait. It wasn't everything destroyed. No, the Masoretic text is the way to go. Well, I guess that's it. So now I go back, click on that, and I'm ready to close out chess. And let's see. He moved on from there and dug another well. How about that? Isaac named the place Rehoboth, open space. At last, the Lord has created enough space for us to prosper in this land. Genesis 26. 6. Isaac, a very important person in Scripture. You know that. Numbers 21:18. These aren't in any particular order, but this is an important one. The well that the princes made, that the nobles of the people dug with the scepter and with their staffs, and from the wilderness they went on to Matana. That's funny. Their staff and their scepters. That might mean that they had to protect it from violence because, water was scarce and Moab wouldn't sell them any. Another one from Genesis 26. Then they dug another well. There were no wells in the world. I wonder how long these wells lasted from Genesis 26. That's where I'm slowly building to an answer for that. Genesis 26, couple. So the Philistines took dirt and stopped up all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of his father Abraham. I know for a darn near almost certain fact that they find wells just covered in, and they're saying, well, it looks like they dug this well as to honor a god and then filled it in. Well, maybe you should read the Bible, and sometimes it's the Philistines that filled them in. Buenos dias. Good morning. Look at, so we're done with that verse. Here's another one. Just two more proof texts before I get to John. Isaac dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of Abraham, his father. He makes it sound like such a long time ago, doesn't it? Which the Philistines had stopped up, okay? And he gave them the names that his father had given them. Wells are a big deal. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called his name Jacob, the everlasting God. What's the context on that? 21:33. Abraham planted and God sojourned many days. Okay, this is where they swore an oath. This is the beginning of everything. And the takeaway situation, Jacob gave us this well. And then this is, he came to a town of Samaria, Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. Here you go. If you knew the gift of God, it would be living water. Sir, you have nothing to draw the water. Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it himself. And what's the debate? 4,000 or 5,000 years later, Jesus is there. They're still using that infrastructure. I tell you today, in the main, what they call desert regions, those wells are still providing after the millennium of Christ, thinking it, 5,000-6,000 years. It's the same things. He gave us the well. He drank from it himself. There are many wells that go back to that time, like the canals. This is a rebuild or it's not. I'm going to leave this open in case we want to go back to it. So to me, it seemed like something new, that like, oh yeah, it's the same well. It was the same importance of water. population increase, decline, wars, famine, pestilence, one thing remains consistent. Water is always going to be the sustainer of life. No way. So this guy's making a creek. He brought his creek to name it because in this area, people make creeks and they name them themselves. But I thought it was cute the way this young man in his innocence was saying, I'm a rock climber. I'm going to turn it up so you can hear it. The little kid thinks he's a rock climber.
Rock climber.
You're rock climbing. Wait, this is so cool.
Okay.
You're in the creek.
Creek.
Yeah.
So, this is a very large rock right here, and the spring water is coming from underneath it all over the place. And like how water moves through land. And luckily with Freya, me and her just spend like so much time out here that these springs weren't like super hard to find. It's like, it doesn't feel like this dam system is big enough for this spring.
Yeah, who would have known he found a big one? I want to hear a little bit of this video. I was looking up some old videos. This one really is really close to being 5 years. And I can't say I agree with the man's doctrine anymore. At the time I was playing this, it was already 5 years old, and this was a replay. How did I introduce it? I might have introduced it much the same way.
Get through this. I'm going off of information that I used in a video that I made a few weeks ago. As I mentioned when I made this video, it was the only time in a long time I had not done first an audio check to make sure that the software was picking up the signal from my mic, and thus the video was not even recorded.
Bummer. Do I explain how old it is?
So now I'm going to share with what will be seen as an historic lesson in what I learned. And now you know where I've gone with it since 2017. And by the way,
I need to order another one of these things from Peru. They're just handmade. And it's a turtle surrounded by turtles that's made of other turtles, and it's moved.
Jonathan, the man teaching, has a wife and 2 young children, and he does the same thing as Static in the Attic. So
that means he types in about a couple of years, he takes it to white power. But this was an important lesson for me.
Too much about Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, although it seems to me thus far that there is a lot that we could talk about. Now, in my last video, I talked to you about the ongoing struggle I'm having with determining the exact meanings of the first directional word used in the Bible, which would be Kedem. That is most commonly thought to be east, but yet it is used so often to mean more ancient or eternal things, and the book is not closed on that yet, but I have to get on to this. It has been taught to everyone that I know. If it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter, I don't think, what sect of Christian faith you were brought up in or where you currently reside. You have been taught this idea that Genesis chapter 1 is describing to us a 6-day creation. And that in Genesis chapter 2, what we're seeing is a going back and further detailing of day number 6 and then forward. The only problem with that is nearly everything structurally in what's being expressed in Genesis chapter 1 and what's being expressed in Genesis chapter 2. So I'm going to do my best to try to help you understand what the issue is. So we've got to start in 1:11. All right. No, 1:9. And it says, and I'm going to be reading again. This is mostly King James with Hebrew words added in wherever whoever designed this particular software decided that they should go. Specific Hebrew words. Reading this at Q Bible, the Hebrew translation portion of Q Bible, is helpful for the person who is trying to first acquaint themselves with the Hebrew. So Genesis 1:9. And Elohim said, let the waters under the heaven, Shemaim, be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And Elohim called the dry land earth, and the gathering together the seas, the waters he called seas. Elohim saw that it was good. And 1:11, and Elohim said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. Now, thus far, I've found that these translations aren't terrible, but at the same time, they're not completely conveying, I believe, the description of what we see in the plant life. And as you get into the wording used and the characters within that wording, you'll see that some of these verses being translated into English may need to have been quite a bit longer to fully capture what's being communicated to us. So continuing on, and the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding after its kind, the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after its kind. And Elohim saw that it was tov, good. And the evening and morning were the 3rd day. 1:14, and Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, signs, seasons, days, and years. Let them be for lights in the firmament, heaven, the earth. It was so. And he made the stars also. He gave light upon the earth. The sun, it doesn't say sun, I'm sorry. One light for the day, one light for the night. He saw that it was good. Evening, morning, 4th day. Now, day 5. And remember, the only time we see a cardinal day is 1. The rest are ordinal days. They are listed as ordinal days. A 2nd day, a 3rd day, a 4th day. You can make what you want of that. But eventually, we will figure out why terms like that are being used. So in 1:20, and Elohim said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And Elohim created great whales and every living creature that moves, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. Elohim blessed them, saying, be fruitful, multiply, fill the waters and the seas, let the fowl multiply in the earth. and the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Now, just to clarify a few things before we move on, the translations of these animal lives, I think, are not good. Uwi Amar Alaim, Aish Ratsu E Maim, waters, Sharatz, Napash. Thus far, teeming souls. Yeah, exists. And we got Oop. Eo Upap. So, the whole thing about fowls, if you do a cross-reference search on this word 5775, Oop, and then right after it, Eo Upap, flying. Okay, flying. They are creatures. They are Napash, they're souls. Iyai, existing. Iupap, flying. They're flyers flying. And there are some translations I found that actually has that flyers flying. I'm trying to clarify that because when they say fowls, people instantly think of birds. Birds are not the only thing that can fly. We're just talking about things that have the ability to fly. They exist in a sense over, as this says, over the face of the Shamayim, which is what's typically translated as heaven or sky. Maim being the root waters. And then I haven't figured out the sh yet. That looks almost like a W that is called shin today, depending on where the dot is. Anyways, so let's not get caught up in the fouls, okay? But more than that, what we're going to see in 120, 121, 122, we're seeing flying things and things teeming in the waters. And then we also take just a minute to look at the Thuninum, which a lot of them say whales, a lot of them say sea monsters. Yeah, I think that what we're talking about is the creatures in the sea which exist to this day, which are great, terrible creatures that he describes later in the word, specifically for the waters, one of them being Leviathan. So that's what we've got going on here. And it's the fifth day. And then if we pick up in 124, and Elohim said, let the earth bring forth the living creature. Now this is earth, Aretz. This is all Aretz. We're seeing all Aretz. Now, yes, we do see Adma one time in all this, and I'll show you, okay? Because we want to keep track of these things. They're important because they're not the same. If they were the same, they'd have the same characters, they'd be the same word, and they'd be said in the same context. So they're not the same. And in 124, Elohim said, let Aretz bring forth the living creature. That would be Napash Hiya. Napash Hiya. If you see Napash he, Napash he, soul, live, soul, living, soul, life. All of these animals are described as Napashi, just like Adam. Not just the Adam, Adam is described as Napashi. Bring forth the living creature after its kind. Cattle, which is Bema, I have no idea. And they can't stay consistent with cattle, by the way, as Bema. And creeping thing, you can prove this stuff for yourself. Ramash. And beast of the earth after its kind, and it was so. And Elohim made the beast of the earth, Eretz, after its kind, and cattle, Bema, after their kind, and everything that creep, Ramash, upon our, now this is the one time you will see Adma, Ramash, on the soil. See, the soil, excuse me, the Adma is not Eretz, after his kind, and Elohim saw that it was Tob, good. And Elohim said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea. So we're going back to the word for teeming, because dag, which is used later for, let's see, right here, Dagath, sorry, there's Dagath. So it's teeming, you got Dagah, of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, over all the and Aretz. Now, stick with me here. There's a reason I'm actually going through all these things and telling you what these words are. All right, it's all going somewhere. The creeping things, so it's Ramash, upon the earth. Oftentimes the verb form and the noun form are virtually the same, with sometimes different prefixes or suffixes. See, you got something that's Ramash, and then the Masoretes just came along and said, well, in this instance, it should be pronounced Ramash, and in that instance, it should be pronounced Ramesh, because they said so. Now, so Elohim created man in his own image, in the image of Elohim created him, male and female created he them. And Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said to them, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, have dominion over the fish, it's Dega, of the sea, and over the Aub of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. So man, it does say Adam, that is the Hebrew word for man. Anyone who is a man can be called Adam. So he tells them to have dominion over all. Adam is the Napashi that was made to have dominion on the earth. And Elohim said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which there is a fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creeps upon the earth wherein there is life. I've given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And Elohim saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Now, if you go to Genesis chapter 2, first it describes the rest of Elohim. Then, about Genesis 2:4, we see first the name Yahweh appear. And it starts out and it says, now, these are the generations, the Funade, the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that Yahweh Elohim made the earth and the heavens. Now, here's where the English starts to confuse people. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for Yahweh Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. Stop. Ask questions. First off, herb of the field. We're going to start in Genesis 2:5, seeing this word Shaddai. we have not seen Shaddai in Genesis 1. Now, Oshab, and we may see one other. We have, so Oshab, Shaddai, and this is what eSword is great for. So we can take that and we can start cross-referencing these things. Genesis, geez, I just punched in that, Oshab. It's not in Genesis 1, it's here. It first appears in Genesis 2:5, and every Oshab, Shaddai. Wait a minute. I thought he made all of that stuff in Genesis 1. Let me go back here, because now I feel confused. Oh, here we go. This has got to be it, right? Geez. So we're in right here. Before the lights are made, right? We've got all of this stuff. So we've got, this is the Shah. I see. Oshab, got the Shah and Oshab. They translate it as grass and herb, the Shah and Oshab. Okay, and then we go back to 2:5. Shia. Is that right? Shia? Let's try a cross-reference again. Oh, yeah, that's right. Shia. And here it is again. We see it in 21:15 when
Hagar.
yeah,
Hagar.
what's her name? That had Ishmael. Hagar, I think. I completely forgot her name. When she's with Ishmael, which Ishmael was actually a lot older than you think when they ran off. Anyways, so there it is. We've got a very different kind of plant here. It's not even mentioned in Genesis 1. It's here in Genesis 2. And it's modified. How's it modified? Shaddai. It's modified by Shaddai. Now let's look at Shaddai real quick. Here we go, 7704 Shaddai. Quick search, Genesis. And I can't find it in 1. I was really hoping, because I don't want to reinvent the wheel here. I want to figure out what's being told to me. But here, I just starts in 2:5. Plan.
Wow. Hey, I don't want to butt in too much, but as you can see, the genesis of now what we know, it all started when I was listening to this man while he was, I'm not sure where he is. He had got some leukemia or something, 2019, and he kind of dropped off the radar. But you guys see how I developed this, and now it really is. It's a worldwide, Dr. Heiser, who I disagree with a lot. Hats off. He's the guy who got the Elohim Titan connection going, although he's to it, he trusts non-scriptural books to his own detriment. Thanks for letting me have that interruption.
Right? Shia, Shaddai, plant of the field. Before it was in the earth, Aretz. And now we have, and every Oshab, Shaddai. It's modified. It's Oshab, Shaddai. Why is it modified? We've got Shaddai a lot. Now, we can jump forward here in eSword we're at 219. Out of the ground, Yahweh God formed every, he. That is a very broad term you'll find if you start doing a cross-reference on he. That's 24:16, he. of Shaddai. There it's modified again. We can't find anything modified like that in Genesis chapter 1. Now, some people might look and they might say, yeah, but I see kol. Kol has to mean all. Kol most certainly does not have to mean all, because you go back, it can mean all within a context. You go up to Joel, and the part of Joel that Peter quotes from Joel 2, on the day of Pentecost, when it says, in that day, Yahweh would pour out his spirit on all flesh. It's kol. Kol basar is flesh. Basar. Kol basar. Are we talking about chipmunks and oxen? I don't think we are. It has to be contextual. So before anybody says, but, every step back and contextualize it. So again, we're seeing this modified Shaddai.
I'm pretty sure that was a shot against the newly arrived and instantly popular Rob Skiba, who has a ton of videos where he just screams, the word all means all every time.
We have the he, Shaddai. All of the lives of Shaddai. And in 220, again, we have the he, Shaddai. This is important. This is important that we have this modifier, Shaddai, because what we do is we have this modifier, Shaddai, and then we see it again in 3:14. Anyways, this is all very important because that modifier is not in 1, and it is in 2. And for instance, when I said stop, full stop at Genesis 2:5, because we need to think about that for a second. All of us have been taught that when we read in English, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for Yahweh Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. Now it is interesting that just before it says these are the generations of Shemaim and Aretz when they were created. In the day that Yahweh Elohim made the earth and the heavens, in the day, we need to seriously consider what this Yom means and contextualize it, and have nothing but contempt and suspicion of everything the Masoretes have fed us. So, we've got this issue. There was not a man to till the ground. So, what portion of that are we supposed to be emphasizing? Are we supposed to be emphasizing there was not a man? What is? No, I'm not bored with my background. Get out of here. Get out of here. I don't know why they're doing that while I'm making a video. So are we supposed to emphasize that there was not a man? Or are we supposed to read the entire statement that there was not a man to till the ground? There were men, but there was not a specific sort of man made to till the ground, to bring forth the Shia, Shaddai, the vegetation of the Shaddai. Now, you can cross-reference Shaddai. I recommend that you do. And I believe what you will find in general is that when you see Shaddai, it is going to be a term that modifies anything that it appears with to be of a character that is, in a sense, domestic. If you can boil it down to one word, domestic. Now, you might find a few bumps in the road as you go, but consider the translations, the translators, and what is being said around that word. But the bulk, the weight of what you will find with Shaddai is going to be something that absolutely eludes, if not denotes, domestic. Domestic. Domestic vegetation. How about domestic lives? He Shaddai. Domestic. Different than all the lives and all the plants and wild animals. And do I dare say wild men made in Genesis 1? Now, before you accuse me of everything from blasphemy to hate speech, you better be able to prove conclusively your position. Because I'm just looking for what it is that this document is really saying. So if Genesis chapter 2 is just a retelling of Genesis chapter 1, as we've been taught, what I'm confused about, more than the fact that, the thing about Shia not showing up in Genesis 1, or the modifier Shaddai not showing up in Genesis 1, Yahweh, Elohim not causing it to rain yet upon the earth. Why would that be mentionable if it was just day 6? Why would that be mentionable? Just ask yourself that. What's the point? If it's day 6, I'm not sure I completely understand what the point of mentioning that there wasn't rain. It hadn't rained. It hadn't rained in 5 days. Well, let me see. Honestly, what do we got? We got light on 1. We've got the firmament on 2. We've got the dry land appearing on 3 and the seas gathering into their places. We've got the heavenly lights on 4. We've got the plant life all being made on 5. And then essentially man and earth beast, earth life made on 6. But yet for some good reason, the great God who wrote this through his servant Moses, decided it was very important to let us know that on day 6 it hadn't rained yet. Now, I'm a little excited because I just think it would be best to think these things through instead of just digesting all of the dogma that we've been taught, that the people who taught us were taught, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. Let's back up and let's think about it. He hadn't caused it to rain yet. By day 6, why does that matter? If you've got a better explanation, you can go ahead and put it in the comments. I don't censor comments. Now, there wasn't a man to till the ground. Again, it's being modified. Not there wasn't a man. It doesn't say there wasn't a man. It's modified. There wasn't a man to till the ground. There wasn't a certain kind of man. I never said better. I never said worse. I said there wasn't a certain kind of man. That's what I said. There was a mist that went up from the earth and watered the whole face of Adamah, the soil, so that all of that plant life from Genesis 1 could grow and could thrive. And it did. but none of that special plant life. Shia. None of that was growing. Why? At Shia Shaddai, there wasn't a man, a certain kind of man, to till, to work the ground. The word is servant, to be a servant of the ground, to bring forth those things. Certain kind of man. It doesn't say there was a man. And now, starting in Genesis 2:7, and Yahweh Elohim formed Adam, the man. What man? Oh, all men. Oh, wait a minute. All men? Wait a minute. Adam. See, right here, there was not a Adam. There was not a Adam. For what? To till the ground. So when it says here, Yahweh Elohim formed Adam, all men? No, maybe what he did was he formed Yitzhar. It's not the bara we see in Genesis 1. Yitzhar, he sculpted. He specially took the time to sculpt this certain man who would till the ground. Maybe that's why we have Adam in 1 and Adam in 2, because Adam means man. So Yitzhar sculpted the man to till the ground. So to till Adamah, ground, not Eretz, the earth. Adamah, special man, specific man, okay? So he formed Adamah of the dust, and it's a part of the Adamah, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became, here it is, he, Nabash. He became he, Nabash, living soul. Interesting.
I'm being struck by how much Nephesh sounds like Nephilim, where Nephilim just means a mighty male, a big man, a God in charge. People would say, let's keep him in charge.
It's Nabashi in 1, but I digress. Genesis 2:8, and Yahweh Elohim planted a gun. Here we go, Adam, right? Oden. And there he put Adam, who he had, Yitzhar, sculpted. And out of the ground made Yahweh Elohim to grow every tree. Now we have tree. Adamah, out of the Adamah. This is the same ground. This is soil. This is earth. This is what things grow from. This is the top part. This is the good stuff. That good stuff grows from. And every tree, we have oats, that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life, also in the midst of the Gan and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We won't get into the wording of those things. For now, let's just say that those things are okay in this context because we're not proving those things here. We're not proving anything. We're proving what it is that the text says. That's all I'm doing. And then we have the river, right? Ner. We don't know if that's a river. We know it's a waterway. It's some sort of water. It went out of Odin to water 4 heads. And then we go into the 4 heads, right? Now, after we get out of the 4 heads of the river, and those are all very important. Those contain vastly valuable information. They certainly do, but we're going to skip over that because that's not what our main focus is here. We're going to jump right up to 2:15 and continue there. So 2:15, and Yahweh Elohim took the man, put him into the Gan Oden, to dress and keep it, because this Adam was made special for a specific purpose. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, of every tree of God you can freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it, for in the day that you eat thereof you'll surely die. This commandment not to be found in Genesis chapter 1. Because there's a difference. Just because both the Adam of 1 and the Adam of 2 are told what they may eat does not make them the same. 2:18, and Yahweh Elohim said, it's not good for that man to be alone. I'll make him a help suitable for him. Now here's where I get confused again, because it's easy to confuse me. I'm not that smart. 2:19, now out of the Adamah, not Aretz, out of the Adamah. This is the same stuff that this Adam was taken from. Yahweh Elohim, he formed Yitzhar. Every he, Shadeh, there's that modifier. It's a specific kind of life. Call it domestic if you want, or if you don't want, then you come up with a better descriptive that properly translates Shadeh. And every Aub, Shamayim, remember, every, that's kol. Kol doesn't always mean all. Kol is in context. I will pour out my spirit on kol basar, all flesh. So, are we talking about animals, birds, fish? Or when all flesh, does that mean man? Consider these things, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. So, and he gave names to all the cattle. This is 2:20. It says cattle, but it's Bema. I'm not sure that Bema is cattle. But every fowl of the air, every he, Shadeh. But for Adam, there was not found a help suitable for him. I'm so confused because in Genesis 1, I just read this. So you could understand after I show you, you can understand why I'm so confused. I'm not smart. Right here on the 6th day, it says, Elohim said, let the earth bring forth he, Nabash, after its kind, right? Behma, which they say is cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth, after its kind, and it was so. It happened right there, 124. It happened. And then 125, Elohim made the beast of the earth after its kind, cattle after its kind, everything that creeps upon the earth after their kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. It's a done deal. It just happened. 126, and Elohim said, let us make man in our image. Wait a second. I got man being made right here in chapter 2. And what is it? I'm sorry. Chapter 2:7. I get confused. I told you it's easy to confuse me. Not that smart. 2:7, he made man. But if I go forward, in 2:19, it says, out of the ground, Yahweh Elohim formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. Are you guys seeing a problem? In one, all those, right? They were made, correct, and it was a done deal.
Now,
And then-
remember at this time, and I want to, hopefully my volume is turned on. At this time, none of us knew anything about, like, oh man, it could be the Nephilim, or now there's the Titans, because the Nephilim can be saved. They're humans. They were on Noah's Ark. So this is good stuff. It's a good reminder for me, and I'm loving it.
Then he says, let us make man in our image after our likeness. After it was a done deal, it happened. After he makes man. Genesis 2, what does he do? Well, first off, he makes man from the Adamah. And then in 2:19, he makes these he, Shaddai, from the Adamah. And he's making them after man. So I guess it doesn't matter what kind of mental, verbal, textual tricks you want to do to try to make Genesis 2 a detailed retelling of day 6 in Genesis chapter 1. You have, if you're going to stick with that, and that's going to be your dogma, you have a clear contradiction in chronology. Deal with it. Deal with it before you make any comments. Does anybody else out there find it to be interesting that Yahweh Elohim said it's not good for that Adam to be alone? I'll make him a help suitable for him. And out of Adamah, Yahweh Elohim formed every he, Shaddai. And every Ob, Shine. He brought him to Adam to see what he'd call him, or whatsoever Adam called every Hinapash. That's what the name was. And Adam gave names to all them, Ob, every he, Shaddai. We're going to get into why it is this term he would be being used in the same sentence as Beh-meh in the future, for a good reason. But there was not found a helpmeet for him. That's interesting. If you don't find that interesting, maybe someday you will. That Yahweh Elohim would bring what? Opossums? Horses? I mean, I have a hard time thinking that what he was doing was trying to match those things up with Adam. But that's another video. That's something different. And Yahweh Elohim, he caused the deep sleep to fall upon Adam. He slept. And it says he took one of his ribs, and there's a lot of controversy, cello, about that, closed up the flesh, and he made this woman. Okay, Adam says, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. And then in chapter 3, he gives her a name. And there's something very interesting about that name that we have to talk about. But when you consider the modifiers being used in Genesis chapter 2 that are not used in Genesis chapter 1, when you consider the fact that in Genesis chapter 1, each day is given as an ordinal number, not a cardinal number, except the very first. And then when you consider, when you go into Genesis chapter 2, that it starts before this story of Adam in the Gan Oden, or Garden of Eden. These are the generations. These are generations of the heaven and earth when they were created, in the day that Yahweh Elohim made the earth and the heavens. That's that whole story we've seen so far up to that point. And we don't know what kind of time has passed. Because Yom is very interesting. The idea, the concept, how it's used. Context is very key. The fact that our lexicography is dominated by these occultists called rabbis and Masoretes and so-called Jews. But I'll tell you this, with as ignorant as I find myself to be, and I find myself to not know as I learn, and with as little time as I have to put into this, I'm not seeing the same story in Genesis 2 as in Genesis 1. You have something different, unique, and specific. You have a specific, special man that was created in 2 to do a specific thing. Put in a specific place with a special purpose, special role. And here's the deal. Yahweh, Elohim, the creator, has the prerogative to do as he will, as he sees good. Now, to not argue with anyone concerning the veracity of the Hebrew scriptures. What I'm doing here is trying to understand what they say before we can have a good, constructive argument about the historicity and the veracity of the Hebrew scriptures. We first have to clear away all of the garbage that has been handed down to us through the Masoretes. Unfortunately, through Greek translations. And most unfortunately, through things like Nestle Aland United Bible Society, that simply mixes so much existing manuscript evidence all together in this calico-y, hodgepodge, mix stuff. No single source stuff. There are actually a number of single source manuscripts, but what I'm trying to tell you is we've got man messing around with these documents ad nauseum. We have to first determine what the documents say before we can have a good constructive argument on their historicity. and the person responsible for them, or people, if that's what you believe. And I will tell you this. If I found good evidence with my feeble mind that is so utterly imperfect, that showed me that this was all a sham. For any of you who understand the extraordinary tribal, ethnocentric nature of those people that call themselves Jews, and you have equated the Hebrew scriptures with them, the first thing you have to do is stop that, because they have done nothing but malign the reputation of the Hebrew scriptures and the God thereof with their behavior, and by even having the gall, the nerve to call themselves the house of Judah. And they ain't got any proof. Just like their fiat language, just like their Masoretic Puki Nikud, they don't have any proof that they have any relationship to the house of Judah or the house of Israel. Don't confuse the two. If a horse calls itself an apple, you're likely to not believe it. And that's all I got for today. So chew on that.
Well, that was a lot. I realize that if you're hearing me right now, then I had my microphone turned off when I wanted to make a comparison that the Nephesh is a lot like Nephilim. And Nephilim, we know there were after Noah's Ark, which has to mean they're human. Nephilim, the Gibborim Nephilim would only mean that they were bigger than stronger and more capable at leading. Yeah, the only bad Gibborim they mention is Nimrod, and Gibborim is mentioned over 100 times, and it's usually, it's used of God, King David, his mighty men, the people Joshua sent in. So there is that. But let's keep going. I have time, and I'm not getting anything that. So I had it turned off for a few seconds there. So that was a good one. Let's see what we got now. This is interesting. Another one from, I'm a one-trick pony. It's always going to be about the stones are crying out, and there's a new theology. The new theology that I developed, the mud flood thing, read the Armageddon, 70 AD has already happened, and the whole millennium's already happened. It's, to me, equal with the stones crying out, proving that we are living stones to be fit in, and we can build up gold, silver, and precious stones.
Begins to occur. Paco listened intently to what I had to say, but soon found fault with the idea of the heart remaining in a contracted state following death. He spotted the anatomy book I'd placed on the chair, which I'd opened to the heart pages, and began to clarify that the heart does not remain in contraction when dead, but as can be seen in the video of his father performing a dissection.
Right. It only becomes frozen in judgment when it gets hit by the glittering sword.
Right.
But, it's too easy of an answer if you don't trust the Bible.
Heart is rather soft and malleable once removed from the body. In Paco's mind, this meant that it was impossible that it would take on the form that I was describing. I hadn't yet explained to him that I suspected that the petrification process likely occurs.
That might be a little confusing, and I want to take a second to explain it. When he's talking about Paco, he's not talking about me. I call myself Paco to honor the Paco's father, he's talking about that Paco, Dr. Torrance Paco Guas, the man who showed me the helical heart. Like the man I just showed you, all I remember is his first name. It was 12 years ago. And it's how I came up with the theologies and the biologies that, in my mind, as God refreshed me last night, doesn't matter how many views I've gotten. I've already started 1,000 careers of people teaching short season and changed the world, and I'm to be satisfied with that.
Quickly, perhaps in as little as hours, and most likely involves either extreme heat and pressure or some sort of a monumental electrical or plasma event. Anyone who has ever used a TENS machine or been hit by a taser knows what electricity does to muscle fibers. I asked Paco if he was familiar with the works of Victor Schauberger and how they related to his father's work, but to my surprise, he'd not heard of the Austrian scientist. I wonder if his father came across Schauberger or learned of his many discoveries. The overlaps between their work are surely many. I also mentioned the works of Girolamo Sagato, the early 1800s scientist who held the secret to the petrification of all kinds of flesh. While the secret of his technique died with him, the irrefutable proof of his knowledge can be found in museums in Italy to this day. I've also cited several other examples of rapid petrification, which I...
All right, interrupting now to go back to find.
What are you doing interrupting now? How long is it going to take you to find? Are you going to go teach the scripture or get to it? Look how long it took. I knew I should jump ahead. What are you saying?
There's your Roman concrete recipe right there.
Are we looking at pictures?
Bioluminescence.
Didn't I show the
You
helical
see
heart?
that when you eat meat all the time.
Bring it by throwing an electrical stimulus to this, and it gets over to here, and then it gets activated. I wonder if I should slow it down just for a second. So it's a lot of wireless activity going on in there in the heart, because I know you're a person, you're a soul, but you're a magnet too. You are a magnet boy.
Constricted and dilated. We learned that from William Harvey, and it turns out that the spiral formation of the heart makes the heart twist and untwist. And when it twists and untwists, the twisting is for ejection, the untwisting is for emptying. So once you understand that formation, you begin to understand what you see on an example of how the heart works. And in general, we have in the past looked at the cavity of the heart, but not the walls. And with the magnetic resonance imaging, we began to look at the walls. And suddenly you understand that the heart has an apex which stays still. And the way it works is that it twists and thickens and untwists and lengthens. So our concept of the heart filling and emptying by constriction and dilatation is a trick. Look at the cavity of the heart, but not the walls. And with the magnetic resonance imaging, we began to look at the walls. And suddenly you understand that the heart has an apex.
See this part here that comes back and around, and this is that tube that runs outside the heart that leaves those marks I was telling you about. This is the part that remains completely steady. Now keep your eye, remember that because I'm gonna. That would be this part. This part. This would be the part that's just sitting there, not moving. And this part here is the part that's going
Twist it.
This is going to pump it in, pump it in, pump it in. So it's why it's sealed off there, because it doesn't want backflow. Doesn't want it backflow. So when that flaps open all the way open, you can catch it as a Rosetta Stone. It looks like, not the Rosetta Stone, the Roswell Stone. It looks like the Roswell Stone when it gets caught in full flappage. And so this is be oriented like this, with this part here not moving and this part doing that hole. See, this was caught in a, pretty close to a full
Between the atrium and the ventricle. And this was taught to me over about 350 years, because this is what William Harvey, designed circulation, taught us. And well, if you look at the MRI, you see two things that are quite fascinating. First, you see it constrict and shorten and thicken to eject. And then you see it change its orientation and untwist and lengthens, and the cavity of the heart changes its size before the valves open. And because of that change in the size of the cavity compared to the blood within it, as the blood's the same, it creates suction. And with the suction, you can watch the blood on the MRI get sucked into the ventricle, and you can see that 90% of filling occurs during that initial phase, even though the pressure difference is tiny. It's not a pressure phenomenon, it's a suction phenomenon. So with understanding the nature of how the loops twist and untwist, you understand two things. The first thing you understand is how the heart ejects and fills by suction. And the second thing you realize is that anatomy is changed, as we can also see in MRI, where the ventricle becomes spherical. The capacity to twist and eject and untwist and suck is lost. So the patient with heart failure can't twist very well, and therefore he can't increase his output of his heart to be able to work, and he gets tired frequently. And more importantly, he can't untwist to suck the blood back. If it doesn't untwist to take the blood back.
So that's pretty good. What do we got here?
Lama was struck by the techniques of mummification of corpses and tried to steal their secrets. Oh. His experiments were often hindered by the medical health authorities of Florence, who judged his studies contrary to any professional ethics. Some accused him of having forged ties with Egyptian sorcerers to have the magic formulas that allowed him to carry out the petrification.
Ooh,
Yikes, did he
that's
do
weird.
that? There he is. I wonder what this picture is here.
What are you looking for? It's obviously some woman's chest. Oh,
Here's some petrified human bones. So they say.
a couple more minutes.
This has always been that's a crazy one, right? Recently, I was teaching in a church about the origin of man and the age of the earth. In a question and answer period, someone asked, how long does it take to make a fossil? Using two examples, I explained that it doesn't take that long. One example was a felt hat left in a mine. 50 years later, the mine was opened up to discover that his hat had turned into a fossil. The second example was a cowboy boot found in Texas with a fossilized human foot and leg bone inside. The boot was manufactured in 1950 and discovered in 1999. So given the right conditions, fossilization can occur rapidly. And just broken, in the break points, if it wasn't constrained by the boot, these might have broken off, crumbled around, and just looked like rocks. It might have just looked like a rock. There's a rock hat.
That's weird.
Rock hat. Here we go. Kalau. The man began to call. Where am I even getting this from? Oh. Okay. What? Began. So they began to do this. Where you at, Joshua? You still down there after the Pentateuch?
But it is.
Oh, I didn't make it past the verse 5. What do they got over here?
So I think I showed most of the things I wanted to see about the stones in that one. I was just looking at some of the older 5-year-old videos. What's this one here? Two creations. Huh. I have this part saved. I wonder if it's about it, because Rob Skiba came out teaching some false doctrine, bringing the Enoch, Dr. Heiser. You know, things changed almost immediately about 2018, 2019. And I went over a little review of this 4 years ago. People got mad. They love that guy.
And they somehow, it was similar to Yeshua or Yahweh, and they transformed that name. I don't know. Like I said, I got that.
Remember this 4 years ago? Now, Big Pig Slapper Oink. It's just one of those reminders of how some people use you, they start their own channel, and then they just go bad.
Look like this. These drains are because we know that the tunnels are already and have been underneath there.
Wow. Early in this, there were so many old friends saying hi, and Greg and Ella were friends.
Not a monk, a nun.
Well, I tell you, the devil is blatant, ain't he?
You know, it's kind of quaint in its demonic, satanic kind of way. What's up with these people in the world? I'm telling you.
I know, man.
For you know, for bribes or for some reason, why would you show partiality to the wicked unless you are a little on the bad side yourself? Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. And also you have to, you know, not just that, but maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. So you need to not, you know, rescue the weak and the needy for one.
Uh-oh. What's
Freeze
that?
on them because they're easy. Why? Well, they have neither knowledge nor understanding. They know not what they do. They walk about in darkness, not knowing what they do. Their eyes having not been opened, their ears not unplugged. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. Why wouldn't they be confused? They have neither knowledge nor understanding. Verse 6, I said, you are God's sons of the Most High, all of you. Okay, so we have the Most High. Nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all nations. Wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more tabs to go until I turn this show over to you and say, is there anything else you want to talk about? Or maybe you want to watch a video or something? Psalm 82, verse 1. Some of the other translations read it as the NIV, a psalm of Asaph. God presides in the great assembly. He renders judgment among the quote unquote gods.
And it does mean Ephraim.
New Living Translation. God presides over heaven's court. He pronounces judgment on the heavenly beings. You'll be able to see soon that that's just a very pathetic attempt. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. Berean Study Bible. He renders judgment among the gods. King James Version. He judgeth among the gods. We pretty much that's we're going to go with that. You know, he, in the midst of the gods, So I can only imagine I pulled that up and to show that we have Elohim, you are gods. Oh, I didn't go to verse 1 first. I must have skipped it. Well, I'm going to just stay with the order. Elohim. In the beginning, God. You know, they don't want to put gods in it there. Do they ever put gods, plural, in it? Where does it say you're going to be gods? Is it only in
Genesis
Psalm
10.
82?
They'll become like us,
Is that where that myth came from?
knowing good and evil.
We're not going to get to the Psalms. Too many. Walk down these and see what I had here. This is the verses that have the Most High. If you noticed on that one, you know, it had Most High. So we'll look at those.
You had it.
Let's go back to 82:1. Elohim and Elohim. All right. So it's the same word. It is the same word, and it means God. There is none of this that it means gods. It implies the Trinity or anything like that. That's just not happening.
So this is after about a year, it was cleared up when the new information was added, and this, you know, this part hasn't changed. There are now the Elohim who died like men. They made the mountains. The stones are crying out. The rocks are body parts. The whole millennial reign theology that had started, but it wasn't where it is now. There's no looking back as the veil is being lifted. This explanation of Elyon, the Most High, he's the Spirit God that we're going to talk about in John chapter 4.
Most High, you are like the Elohim. You are Elohim. Sons, we've been created by the Most High. And if they use it as, you know, you're, you know, going to do, you know, we're not Jesus Christ. We are never going to be creator gods, but we are eternal beings. And this is not our home. Better is one day in his courts than 1,000
Elsewhere.
Here.
Fahrenheit and a pressure of 643 pounds per square inch.
You is.
He made a movie called My Cousin Vinny.
That's an old one. I've seen that a couple of times.
Here's this character
No time
going
wasted.
over what's happening in the world today, pretending he's still that lawyer Vinny, who, if it was funny because unless his paralegal girlfriend helped him, he was the worst lawyer ever.
Okay, folks, I'm keeping this one clean today to reach a broader audience. But don't worry, I'll be back again tomorrow with Lester and our usual F-bomb session. All right, folks, Counsel Vinny Gambini here. And today I'm stepping in, not just as your favorite cousin, but as a legal observer with a very specific question. What exactly are they trying to hide? Because based on what we just saw, something about this narrative smells like a 3-day-old lasagna left in a hot car. We're talking about the tragic shooting of Charlie Kirk, a man of faith, family, and courage. The kind of guy who didn't just talk about values, he lived them. So before we dive into the inconsistencies, let's make it crystal clear. This isn't about sensationalism. This is about truth. And as a lawyer, I know.
Who would ever know that this guy is still doing this? This is crazy.
Backpack couldn't even hold a disassembled 30-06. And he,
Well, now we know that they do make folding 30-06 if they need a distraction shot. The exploding necklace is gaining traction, but they didn't. They have the video of him running across the roof and jumping off, but that video is a widescreen single shot thing, and so they have him setting up the shot too. But they've never shown that, and this is months later, because this was all about being suspicious of this within a week.
even if it could, the barrel would be sticking out like a sore thumb. And yet, hours later, a rifle magically appears in the woods nearby. Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay, speculation, and possibly...
Is that much different than what the passports that were laying in the ground zero rubble at 9/11? I mean, what are the odds of that? Well,
what are the odds that I think I have that
video,
I think I have that video clip pulled up.
the weirdest stuff happens, you know.
Yeah, it just is because it's like a movie, and America is always going to get saved with 007 seconds on the clock.
Yeah, what's the odds? And there's other ones as well, but I mean that just it came to mind.
My cousin Vinny, the best fucking lawyer you ever seen. Who would know that this guy's still milking that?
Rationally.
That's
Alex Jones, yeah, that guy. And believe me, I never thought I'd be saying this in court, but the man was right. A book called The Shooting of Charlie Kirk, published the day before the assassination. Are you kidding me? What, we got time travelers now?
Well, they got the alien disclosure. I wonder what I got going on here. Another one from 7 months ago. I was trying to prove something back then about it's a Rosicrucian John Birch Jesuit plot to prop up Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens as the great Roman Catholic examples of acceptors of Noahide law. I wonder if I came across here.
I do not want you lukewarm.
I don't think I'd cover that in the monologue. This is the Fabians. So I talk about the rifle.
Her famous husband,
Frankenstein.
bigamist husband. It is. More of it is constantly being printed, losing value, and eventually loses its purchasing power, making it worthless. Some people say that. So an entity that can act independently within the government has the power to control the country's, the nation's money, print as much or create from thin air as much as they want. But you knew that the central bank is the institution that controls the country's money. How did that happen? The Federal Reserve in the United States in 1971. Yeah, I was alive. It's not that long ago. A dollar could be exchanged for its worth in gold. Now it's like $3,000 an ounce. So this is from last night. It's getting a lot of traction for Do Re Mi, you know, not usually the most unshadow banned man. Hey, check this out. Here's some crazy things. I'm a lifelong leftist, but this critique of the character of those bourgeois founders of many leftist movements is necessary and powerful, said somebody 3 years ago. I've been talking about it a long time. These guys did it. This was the hold your place thumbnail for a while. Bernard Russell, George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, Aldous Huxley, all Fabian Society theosophists hate God, love nudists, love to look at little children naked. So they did that whole thing. These guys, they did it.
Julian Huxley. Shaw revealed that their goal was to be achieved by, quote, stealth, intrigue, subversion, and the deception of never calling socialism by its right name, end quote. The Fabian Society was as a splinter group of the Fellowship of the New Life, composed of artists and intellectuals.
Rosicrucians.
Annie Besant, and also members of the Society of Psychical Research. Fellowship members included Karl Marx's daughter, Elena, Edward Carpenter, George Bernard Shaw, Havelock Ellis, and H.P. Blavatsky's successor, Annie Besant. Carpenter, Walt Whiteman.
All the famous people that they would have you study in university. This is a true stained glass window made in 1911 to show them reforging a globe earth or forging a globe earth, wolf in sheep's clothing, and men praying to their books. I don't think I showed that picture. I couldn't have shown all the pictures.
Was a leading figure in late 19th and early 20th century.
I couldn't have shown all the pictures because I had one of them.
Society was genetically inferior. In this passage,
They all did. That's why they had the one drop rule. Nobody ever argued against that. The two contradictory versions of the Bible. I am happy to know Queen on the throne of England. Down with the Habsburgs. The French Revolution was what he says secret societies planned it. Now, he was in the Jesuit, the Society of Jesus, commonly known as the Jesuits. And it would seem as if the Jesuits wrote the eschatology for the preterist movement, not the pretamillennialism. The millennium is past. Preterism started by Jesuits. It's a rewritten history from top to bottom. It didn't take a computer. They used computers, but this is Satan's plan. Jews, Freemasons, Illuminati want to demolish all monarchies plus the Vatican. Watch out for them. And then you know what? Some of them were diddling little boys, eating people, sacrificing them to Satan, having that homosexual sex while they were Freemasons, shouting them down. We have to stop being amazed at their duplicity, at their capacity for evil. Their tender mercies are wicked. And this guy supposedly did it, you know, became an almoner to the refugee Prince Conte. An almoner distributes the money to the deserving poor.
Okay, good one. We're moving on to another one.
If I could just have a 2-second dialogue with you, Dustin, about it. What were the charges?
Yeah, and then after that, give me a minute.
Yeah. What were the charges? And after that,
Go ahead, brother. What is your question?
I've been waiting a while. What were your charges? What were the charges brought against you?
Daniel, I already sent it to you in the DM.
and here's some.
Oh, he's exposed. You know, this guy is very educated on why Rome is
Head of the
wrong.
Defense Intelligence Agency, still looking like I want to be Hitler. Are you for fucking real? Are you for real?
I
knew the gambles. I'm not with them anymore. I used to be the Q. I'm not Q anymore. I used to be for Trump. I'm not with Trump anymore. Anywhere that he gets pinned down, he backpedals. Let's do one more of this exact same paradigm. I will save the debunking of the warped scriptures for last. That's the most important. I will save it for last. Once again, to the handful of trolls and morons that attack me for stopping the Krieger puppet show. I hope you feel like morons now. Oh, Johnny, I wouldn't see his scriptures. Oh, Johnny, you shut him down. No, I simply told him to stop with his theatrics. Don't monopolize the screen. Don't do a puppet show. You have scriptures. Tell me what they are. You know them by heart, right? This is all your scholarship. You can tell them by heart. You can tell me or just read them. You don't monopolize the screen. So for all of you trolls and the handful of morons that sincerely want to hear this COINTELPRO agitator, provocateur, wanted to hear him, you are a fucking idiot. Even when I didn't fully appreciate what it was doing, I praise God that I did it. I instinctively knew he was putting on a show and spinning it with theatrics in his favor. Same thing going on here. Same paradigm going on here in relation to Stu Peters, almost certainly a flipped counterintelligence asset, outing Dustin Krieger as a flipped counterintelligence asset. You take damaged goods, you take a provocateur, you take a fucktard sensationalist, and have them voice the truth, which then discredits the truth. You take InfoWars clown Jacob Engels, blue check, 12,000 followers. Roger Stone's mini-me. Why? Because Roger Stone is a Jesuit counterintelligence. Roger Stone Catholic, right? Let me double check that. How typical.
In the mine, and he spent 12 hours a day down the mine, and he only ever saw daylight on Sundays. Astonishing. And he got beaten for falling asleep. Absolutely incredible. William Richards, aged 7.5. I have been down about 3 years. God, he was 4. When I first went down, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I don't fall asleep now. I smokes my pipe, smokes half a quarter a week. This little fellow was intelligent and good-humoured. His cap was furnished with the usual Collier candlestick, and his pipe stuck familiarly in his buttonhole. 7.5. My goodness. I can only assume that this has been modelled to life size. And this waist belt here is too small for an adult. It's got to be for a child. Can you imagine? 12 hours a day. And some of these kids were 4 when they started. And there's a girl called Sarah, she was 8. And she says she works in the total dark all day. Absolutely shocking. Shocking, isn't it? My goodness. And I have to say this. The upper class, like Francis Egerton, made their millions on the backs of children and women and men working in awful conditions. Goodness me. Now I'm making that assumption, and I might be wrong, because he inherited mines or he bought the mines, I can't remember which, and maybe he changed things. But I have a feeling he didn't. Up these steps there's inset metallic names. Walkden, Moseley Common, Ellesmere, Fanpit, Little Hulton, Ashton's Field, Buckley Lane, Brackley, and Dixon Green. Now, this is a wild stab in the dark, but I think they're names of mine tunnels. we were reading a signboard just over here. And I asked Karen, how many miles of tunnel do you reckon there might be? And she came up with the answer 10. And had I not read beforehand, I'd have thought, yeah, maybe. It's a lot, isn't it? 10 miles. 52 miles of tunnel here in this mine. And dug by hand. And largely by children and women and men in the dark. Maybe with a candle. That's shocking. Absolutely shocking. Wow. Is too small for an adult. It's got to be for a child. Can you imagine? 12 hours a day. And some of these kids were 4 when they started. And there was a girl called Sarah. She was 8. And she says she works in the total dark all day. Absolutely shocking. Shocking, isn't it? My goodness. And I have to say this, the upper class, like Francis Egerton, made their millions on the backs of children and women.
I looked at the dates of this mine, and it was opened in 1727. That would make it like 15 years after what I teach was the loosing of Satan so he could deceive the nations, the end of the 1,000-year reign, the 290 years before 9/11. 9/11 in my theology starts the last 45 years where it says in Daniel 12 verse 13, blessed are those who make the 1335.
And men working in awful conditions. Goodness me. Now I'm making that assumption, and I might be wrong, because he inherited mines, or he bought the mines, I can't remember which, and maybe he changed things. But I have a feeling he didn't. Up these steps, there's inset metallic names.
There was one part where he describes some of what they said on the stones. Wanted you to see this part too.
This was a hatch that allowed boats to unload directly to the road. Looking from above, the 2 arms leading into the Delf are clear. You can see just how these 2 arms, with their arches through the road, permitted the boat traffic in and out of the Delf. The strange-looking orange structure on the hard-standing, or Delf Island, is a modern-day interpretation of the Delf crane that was used for loading and unloading the mine boats. It looks strangely modern and out of place, but it is actually very close as to how the crane looked. There is a link in the description to the original drawing, and here it is.
If some of you are recently joining, I know people are coming in and out, but at the very beginning, I talked about how when the Lord Christ Messiah was talking to the woman at the well in a very deep conversation, he was explaining, that this is the living water. And she said, but this is Jacob's well. He drank of it and we're still using it. They were still using these, I think, all the way through the 1,000-year reign And when Satan got loose, that's when the big stinks happened and they couldn't figure it out. And let's use the children. It's a messed up world.
Is on screen. As we approach the mine entrance, we see the boat shapes in the water. These are actual size and show just how busy the mine entrance was with all the boat traffic going in and out. This last shot shows how small the mine entrance is. It must have been seriously claustrophobic inside and a really dark and dangerous place to work. The inscriptions on these bronze slabs of coal are really, really heartrending. It says here, where possible, pit ponies were used to carry the coal. However, in narrow seams, women and children had the job of carrying the coal whilst crawling on their hands and knees. Children were chained, belted, harnessed like dogs in a go-kart, black saturated with wet and more than half naked, crawling on their hands and feet and dragging their heavy loads behind them. They present an appearance undesirably disgusting and unnatural. And this is something from the Children's Employment Commission report. My God, when we used to tell our kids to go do their homework, imagine if we said, hey, we got your job. There's another one here, and it's about a little boy, and his job was to hold and close a door in the mine, and he spent 12 hours a day down the mine, and he only ever saw daylight on Sundays. Astonishing. And he got beaten for falling asleep. Absolutely incredible. William Richards, aged 7.5. I have been down about 3 years. God, he was 4. When I first went down, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I don't fall asleep now. I smokes my pipe, smokes half a quarter a week. This little fellow was intelligent and good-humored. His cap was furnished with the usual collier candlestick, and his pipe stuck familiarly.
While the rich that we read about, the people who did the Renaissance and the Jacobians had their royalty living off the fats that they found as part of the whatever staggering fugitives that we are or they were. Some of them hit the ground running. What's this mysterious backstory of Jacob's well?
Anytime you see a single woman walking to a well, she is going to find a husband. Now, it plays a very interesting aspect of our story about husbands. There is also then, the woman responds very specifically then by saying, "Are you greater than our father Jacob?" How does she know this story? She is already seeing the Jewish man, knowing where he's at, what this source is, hears him quote a line out of a movie. Okay, almost. And immediately jumps to say, wait a minute here, your father that I'm going to tie this to Jacob. He just quoted the story. We often underestimate these characters in the story. This is why, going back to her being maybe a different powerful figure, she knows the text almost better than anybody that interacts with Christ.
This was interesting, but he ended up getting a little bit off the track to me here. Genesis 35, God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Padam Aram, blessed him, and God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, no longer shall you be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name." So he called his name Israel, and God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall come from you. Kings shall come from your own body. The land that I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I will give to you, and I will give the land to your offspring after you. Then God went up from him in the place where he had spoken with him. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he had spoken with him, a pillar of stone. He poured out a drink offering on it and poured oil on it. So Jacob called the name of the place where God had spoken with him Bethel. And this is, Rachel and Isaac, they pass away. The Bible, even when you get the blessing like that from God Almighty and you make the covenants, there still is, the rest of your life. That right now, a lot happening in our world, in nature, in theology. The setup is obvious to us. We know the wide road is going to stay wide. So it is the scripture that matters. The books of the Bible, there's a lot to study there. There's a lot covered in these last 2 hours. And I promise you, it's better to listen to this again than fish around. And isn't it crazy how many AI channels they'll just try to stretch your time out? You've heard it. You've also heard me say this. It's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. Well, it's also a flat earth nation. The golden age past. And you have an orphan trained brain. And now you know what's going on. We're still living in the same cities. The wells, as I proved at the beginning of the video, where Jesus said, this is Jacob's well. He drank from it, and there was Jesus. We're still using the same infrastructure. Yeah, we can build some things. They're not as good. You're adopted, called, chosen, predestined to do good works to glorify his name. You're not saved by those works, but those are the talents that are given to you. And all of the parables teach that you should meet the bare minimum. You're a seed in soil that was given light to grow. And now that your heart has been changed from the foundation of the world, it says in Corinthians, there's works laid out from you that will glorify his name. And that should be your main objective. If you've somewhat like what I went through, it seemed like my own idea, but I realized I was called, predestined, elected, chosen from before the foundation of the earth to be on my knees, believing that Jesus Christ died and rose again and that he is God. And I had to confess it with my mouth. I had to call my mom, call by everybody, because it's on my heart now. It's on your heart too, some of you. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakamen. Adios, amigos, from the border of southern Colorado and New Mexico. It's obvious I like to say good